I'm not a conspiracy theorist sort of person at all. Of course, that's something a conspiracy theorist might say before providing details of a conspiracy, but I am really not. I'm fascinated with human behavior. I am fascinated with how people draw conclusions and create patterns and things. There is a natural human characteristic or a natural human thing that we do. It's called apophenia, and it's where we draw connections or create patterns in things that don't have a pattern. A version of apophenia is what's called pareidolia. That is where you see the human face in things that aren't human. You might see like an arrangement of boxes or a house or like a water fountain, and it looks like there is a face there, but there isn't. It's not a human, but looks like a face. That's called pareidolia. Apophenia is the broader version of that, where we just draw patterns or create patterns in something that does not have patterns, like seeing shapes in clouds, or even having data points, and that's making conclusions that don't really exist, but the data looks like it does, because we so want to, as humans, we so want to make sense of the world. And when we are given this data, there's a bias to create it, and it's a very natural thing, because the humans that had created patterns and were able to foresee the future. And I'm not talking about some foresight, but when you're able to see patterns and then you recognize those patterns happening, you can then do things that will result in positive action. And so when the humans that were able to create patterns or see patterns, that made them more beneficial in a life threatening sort of trying to live sort of situation. You see patterns in animals and plants around you that would dictate, hey, I can take advantage of this pattern, and if I see the precursors of that pattern as items, then I can know what the result is going to be. And we are so into that because that's how we've evolved. If you didn't have that pattern recognizing capabilities, you would have not succeeded as well in the evolutionary train, and you wouldn't have passed your genes on. And so we have evolved to have pattern recognition. But it is not always perfect. We are human, and humans are not perfect. We have issues with identifying patterns, and sometimes, and so I see conspiracy theorists as people that are hyperactively drawing patterns in things that don't actually have patterns. Or there are some patterns there, but they're drawing conclusions and bringing other things in that don't necessarily hold true. For example, one of the fascinating conspiracy theories of currently is the dead internet theory. And that I don't want to go into a whole lot of details about that, but it basically states that the internet had died somewhere in 2015 to 2017, somewhere around there. The internet as we knew it is created by people, websites that were created by people, that effectively has died and was replaced by an AI version of it. And so everything that we interact with online is all AI generated. That's a far-fetched conspiracy, but there are elements of it that hold true. For example, bots. That people had created bots to things that are popular get more popular because they're popular, and that's the nature of celebrity. We get these celebrities that aren't actually doing anything, but they become popular because they don't have any particular talents except for maybe marketing, but since they're popular, they become more popular because they're popular. And so people had started to market things in that way by creating bots, AI powered bots that would make it look like something was more popular than it actually was. And then those bots are then going out and finding other things that would possibly be popular and try to maximize that. and become more and make it more popular, and then they start feeding into themselves because the AI bots are say, oh hey, maybe this is popular, and then other things say, hey, maybe that is popular, and it's all bots doing it, and there's very little human involvement, and so content generation, websites, and news stories are more dictated by a bot presence, and then actual human involvement, and then the humans can just follow along. It's the tail wagging the dog. These bots were there to originally get more people interested, but now the bots are just, hey, we get more credit when other bots are interested. So, and then humans just kind of follow along. So that's kind of dead internet theory for you in a nutshell. And some of that is very true. There are some parts of that are very true. Whether or not there's some kind of grand conspiracy behind it, I doubt it. It doesn't seem like it. It's just people looking out for their best interests or trying to market their own thing, and it just kind of creates this pattern, this legitimate pattern that people will pick up on and draw conclusions such as, oh, there's some shady organization or shady AI out there, and that's going a little bit beyond the real pattern that's happening. But that's us as humans. We like to create patterns to make sense of our world. There was an example of this in an old episode, well, they're all old episodes now, of Star Trek Voyager, where the character Seven of Nine, who was part Borg, or used to be a Borg, and she's become human, and but she still has some Borg computer things in her brain, and she had connected herself to the Starship Voyager's computer, and she was processing all of this data from around the ship, and she was drawing these conclusions of what was of things that were happening around the ship, some conspiracies that were very far-fetched and kind of nuts, but to her it all made sense because the pattern was there, and that's apophenia for you. Now there is so saying that, conspiracy theories, I don't put a whole lot of merit in them, except for the fact that it's an interesting study of apophenia, but it's also an interesting study of human behavior, which is part of my interests. I'm very interested in humans and how they work, how they think, the biases, the how we cope with certain things. I'm fascinated with cognitive dissonance, and particularly how it applies to my work when people were creating patterns, because I'm an instructional designer and a learning technologist and a lecturer, all about education, and I'm fascinated by how people create patterns or identify patterns, because that is very important as an instructional designer, to create patterns to make learning an easy thing to do. I'm a firm believer that learning should be like a doorknob. The best doorknob is the one you never realized you used. So learning should be very similar. An instructional intervention should be something you didn't realize you used. You should not have to put much thought into the use of an instructional material to get the educational value out of it. And so pattern recognition and keying into people's natural tendency to have a pattern, look for patterns, that is key, because that makes things more fluid and easy to understand. So saying all that, I'm not a believer in conspiracies, but I do really enjoy the idea of human behaviorism involved in conspiracies, and that apophenia. So this gets to the point that why I clicked record on this video, is that many years ago there was the movie JFK. Was released in 1991, I believe, and it was all about the. I'm gonna tiptoe around some of the words. I don't know what YouTube will do to my use of some terms in this video. So the unaliving of the president JFK. And of course, with recent events in the past few months, there was another attempt on Donald Trump's life, and there were also these recent, not politically oriented. Well, actually, yeah, it could be politically oriented. These terrorist attacks on New Year's, and these couple of different things that seem to be coincidental. They both happened on New Year's, where some crazy person had gone through New Orleans and ran over several people in a truck. You probably heard the stories. Excuse me. And then another gentleman had taken a Tesla truck and excuse me, taken a Tesla truck and exploded it in front of the Trump Tower in Las Vegas. And both there's been these connections between these two, but it doesn't seem like they're actually connected. It just seems like there is some kind of, and it could be, information could come out that says they are connected, but as of right now, as I'm making this video, it seems like there's just some connections there, some patterns going on there that may not indicate anything. I think apophenia is kicking in for a lot of people. Like, oh no, they're both veterans or military, and they both were at the same army base and or military base, and they both rented trucks from the same rental place. Both had political terrorist ties or something like that. So people are drawing all these connections, but it could very well just be a coincidence of what happened. So I don't know. I'm not going to say one way or the other, but there has been precedent of coincidental things happening, or potential coincidental things happening in the past that led to a disaster. Or not really, maybe not coincidence, accidents. But people look for patterns and try to make it more than just an accident, that it was intentional. And back in 1991, I mentioned that the movie JFK came out, so it was kind of in the zeitgeist of the time that people were talking about the conspiracy behind the unaliving of John F. Kennedy. And lots of theories are coming out, and going all the way up into various levels of government and CIA and communism and who knows, everything under the sun was coming out as a possible conspiracy theory. But there was not rumors. I heard these kind of whispers and things at the time of it not being a conspiracy, that there was no major plot or anything. It was simply an accident that ended up unaliving John F. Kennedy. And let me explain. Yes, there was Lee Harvey Oswald, and he did try to unalive JFK, but the weapon that he used was not capable of doing the damage that ended up resulting in JFK's passing. There was some other weapon that drawed all these conspiracies and stuff like that. But a forensic or a ballistics expert looked at the details and found that no, there really wasn't any grand plot. There was one guy that acted alone, but due to an accident, another shot was fired that wasn't from Lee Harvey Oswald, and that is what ended up unaliving JFK. It was just a complete accident, and that shot came from a Secret Service agent in the car behind JFK. And what had happened was that the shots fired from Lee Harvey Oswald, I think there was one shot that was fired, and this agent had this high-powered rifle that was capable of doing the damage that ended up resulting in the passing of JFK. He grabbed the weapon, stood up, looked around, spotted Lee Harvey Oswald, and then another shot was fired, and that's when he accidentally fired his AR-15 Secret Service issued rifle. And that accidental shot, as he was pointing forward, is the one that hit JFK and resulted in his death. Just an accident. So that's something that I had heard was the most likely of situations. It's very dry, and it was not grand conspiracy, so it didn't really catch on. There wasn't these shadowy organizations. It didn't get people's apophenia going. It was like, oh, there's all these crazy. It wasn't fun. So it didn't really catch on. People like the mystery. They're gravitated toward mystery so they can kind of fill in the gaps. But this was, based on the ballistics information, this was the most likely thing that happened. And so this is always kind of rung in my head. I've been thinking about whenever the JFK comes up. That's what comes to mind. So I just recently started doing a little Google searching and found, yeah, it was based off of a book. This called Mortal Error, written by Bonar Meniger. And this was a nonfiction book, which was based off of the theory by this ballistics expert by the name of Howard Donahue. And so we wrote about this in 1992. Went over all of the paperwork, all of the details, and this is what he came up with as being the most likely situation that resulted in the passing of JFK. And I thought that was it. I'm gonna have to pick up this book. I believe, hopefully, I have time to read a full book like that. That's no problem. I love reading, but I just don't have the opportunity to read. But I may pick it up. But what I did see is that there was a video, a documentary that was made, I believe in 2013, called JFK, The Smoking Gun. This was a movie that was on the Discovery Channel and about an hour and a half long. I watched some parts of it. It looked pretty interesting, and so tonight I'm gonna go into BigScreenVR and watch it. I'll open my room up. It'll either be a movie room in the movie category. I think there might be a documentary category in there, so you can look for me in either one of those. I'll have it up. It'll just be called JFK, The Smoking Gun. And we'll watch it and chat about it. So if anyone is interested in joining BigScreenVR, put your VR headsets in, come on over and we can watch JFK, The Smoking Gun together. We'll do that about 7 p.m. this evening. That is on January 3rd. Friday, January 3rd, 7 p.m. I'll get the movie started and we'll watch JFK, The Smoking Gun, that talks about, or is about the book Mortal Error, the shot that unalived JFK. So come over, join BigScreenVR. We'll have a chat about it, and we'll talk a little bit about human behavior and apophenia. And I'm really curious what other people in the room are gonna connections they're gonna draw, and what cognitive dissonance kicks in for some people whenever you get open rooms up to a public like that, where you watch a controversial topic. People are they're given this new information that conflicts with what they may have believed in the past, and that creates a cognitive dissonance. And that's always fascinates me, to find how people resolve those cognitive dissonance when you watch these sorts of movies. So join BigScreenVR, 7 p.m. Pacific time tonight, January 3rd. And if you're not able to make it tonight, that's okay. I'll probably have some more movie nights in the future, and we'll talk human behavior. We'll talk education, learning, AI, and technology. So I hope to see you there. Have a good night.